In the Old Testament, we have role players, we have allegories, we have types and shadows, which are actually speaking and pointing forward to the greater fulfillment. Isaac was the promised seed in the context of Abraham, because God did promise Abraham a seed by his wife Sarah. And when Isaac was born through Sarah, that was the promise of God being fulfilled. But that promise was pointing to Christ, the promised seed. It would be fulfilled in its truest sense when the true promised seed, not the shadow now, but the true seed came. Then that promise was truly realized. But for the time of Abraham, Isaac was the promised seed, but yet he was still a shadow of the true seed. He was still a type of the true seed, Christ. So let's look at some things here. Isaac's birth was foretold by God. Genesis 17 verse 19. God said, "No, but Sarah, your wife, shall bear you a son." God said to Abraham, "Your wife Sarah." Sarah was barren. She was infertile. She could not biologically conceive any children. But yet God was telling Abraham, "Your wife will conceive and bear you a child, a son. And you shall call his name Isaac." So he's saying you will have a child by your wife and you'll call his name Isaac. Now, with Christ, the true promised seed, his birth was foretold by an angel of God. And I'm sure you remember this, Matthew chapter 1 verse 20 to 21. It says there, and speaking of Joseph, Jesus' stepfather, "But as he considered these things, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream, saying, Joseph, son of David, do not fear to take Mary as your wife, for that which is conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will bear a son, and you shall call his name" what? Jesus. So God told Abraham, "Hey, Sarah shall bear your son, you shall call his name Isaac." Angel of the Lord comes to Joseph, your fiancée, Mary, will bear a son, and you shall call his name Jesus. So you have the birth and the name being foretold for the promised seed, Isaac, the birth and the name being foretold for the promised seed, Christ. Isaac, the promised seed, was born on time. Genesis 21:2. Jesus, the promised seed, was born on time. Galatians 4:4. So let's look at those. Genesis 21:2. "And Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age at the time of which God had spoken to him." I think it is in Genesis 17. God said, "This time next year, Sarah shall give birth to a child." And at the set time, in the fullness of that time, she conceived and bore Abraham a son. Isaac, the promised seed, was born on time, in God's time. Let's look at Jesus now, Galatians 4:4. "But when the fullness of time had come, God sent forth his son, born of a woman." So, Isaac, the promised seed, born on time, but he was a type of the promised seed, the true promised seed, Christ, who would be born on time.